A brother and sister drive for hours to visit a grave they barely remember. It's a long drive out to the middle of nowhere, past a rusted iron gate, into a cemetery that hasn't seen fresh flowers in years. The sister is annoyed. The brother is bored. Neither of them knows this will be the last ordinary afternoon of their lives. It's the kind of cemetery that feels emptier than it should. Rows of tilted stones, dead grass between the plots. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful so much as forgotten, like the whole place has been left to itself for a long time. You've probably driven past a place like this without thinking twice about it. Barbara and Johnny didn't think twice either. Why would they? His name is Johnny. Her name is Barbara. They haven't visited their father's grave since the funeral, and Johnny spends the whole walk teasing her about it, the way older brothers do. He points at a stranger stumbling between headstones in the distance and says, in that flat, deadpan voice, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." It's a joke. He doesn't mean anything by it, but the stranger keeps coming. Slow, stiff, wrong. By the time Johnny realizes the joke isn't a joke, it's too late. The man attacks. Johnny fights back, cracks his head on a gravestone, and doesn't get up. Barbara runs. She doesn't stop running until she crashes her car into a tree outside an old farmhouse and stumbles inside, alone, shaking, with no idea what just happened to her brother or to the world outside that gate. This is where the nightmare actually begins. Not with the graveyard, with the silence after it. Inside the farmhouse, Barbara isn't alone for long. A man named Ben arrives, having barely escaped the same nightmare from a different direction. He's calm where she's frozen, practical where she's paralyzed. He starts boarding up windows before he even finishes introducing himself, because somewhere between the gas station and this farmhouse, he's already understood something Barbara hasn't yet. The dead are getting up, and they are hungry. Ben doesn't waste time explaining what he saw on the way here. He doesn't need to. Every board he nails into place says it for him. There's an urgency in the way he moves through the house, checking each room, testing each door. That tells you everything about what's coming, long before Barbara manages to say a single coherent sentence. She tries to talk about Johnny, about the car, about what happened at the cemetery. Ben barely has time to listen. He's already thinking 2 steps ahead, already treating the house less like a home and more like a fortress he has exactly one night to build. Neither of them knows why. Neither of them knows how far it's spreading. All they know is what the radio keeps repeating in that flat, official voice. Stay indoors. Avoid contact. Mass murderers are roaming the countryside. The reports don't add up. The advice keeps changing. And underneath the newsreader's calm, you can hear something the broadcast can't quite name. Nobody in charge understands what's happening either. Ben works fast. He drags furniture against the doors. He rips boards off dead furniture to nail across windows. Barbara sits frozen on the stairs, unable to process any of it, and Ben barely has time to be patient with her, because more of them are gathering outside. Slow, silent, relentless. They press against the windows. They reach through gaps in the boards. Their faces are blank in a way that's somehow worse than angry. There's no rage in them. No hesitation either, just hunger and time and an infinite willingness to keep trying the same door for hours if that's what it takes. That patience is what makes them so unsettling. A person who wants to hurt you eventually tires, eventually thinks better of it, eventually feels something. These don't. They just keep coming. The way water keeps finding the lowest gap in a wall. Not out of malice, but because that's simply what they do now. Hour after hour, window after window. Never faster, never slower, never stopping. Ben barely has the house secured when they discover they're not alone. There's a cellar. And in the cellar, hiding the entire time, is a family that never came out to help. Harry Cooper, his wife Helen, their daughter Karen, who was bitten before the family sealed themselves down there and has been getting sicker every hour since. And a young couple, Tom and Judy, caught in the middle, trying to survive 2 different kinds of danger at once. The ones outside the house and the one already living inside it. Harry wanted to stay in the cellar from the start. 1 door, 1 room, easy to defend. Ben wanted to hold the ground floor with more room to maneuver and a chance to actually see what's coming. Neither man is wrong. That's what makes it so much worse. This isn't a fight between someone smart and someone foolish. It's a fight between two different kinds of fear, and neither one has the luxury of being certain. Harry's fear is the fear of an exposed position, a father who's already watched his daughter get hurt once and refuses to let the group's decisions put her in danger again. Ben's fear is the fear of being trapped, of choosing a hole in the ground with no way out if things go wrong. Both men have already lost enough tonight to know exactly what they're afraid of losing next. Neither will back down, and the argument between them keeps circling back with every new decision the group has to make. Every plan starts to feel less like strategy and more like a coin flip. The radio keeps talking. Reports of mass murder are now reports of the murdered getting back up. Scientists suggest radiation from a space probe. Officials suggest panic and exaggeration. Nobody agrees, and the ones giving orders sound exactly as lost as the people receiving them. Somewhere out there, a television crew films a posse of armed men in trucks and dogs. Hunting the creatures across open fields like this is already just another kind of headline. Grim, efficient, almost bored. That contrast is the quiet cruelty of the whole film. Outside, in daylight, in open country, this is being handled with guns and trucks and organization. Inside this one house in the dark, it is being handled with nailed boards and pure animal terror. Same nightmare. Two completely different worlds trying to survive it. You keep waiting for those two worlds to connect, for the organized men with the rifles to somehow find the farmhouse and end the siege before it finishes what it started. They don't, not in time. The broadcast keeps playing in the background, calm and official, like the adults have everything under control somewhere out there, while the people actually trapped in the dark have no way of knowing if that's true or just something comforting to say on the radio. Ben and Tom attempt to plan to refuel a truck outside and escape to a rescue center reported on the radio. It should be simple. Get in, get gas, get out. Nothing in this house has been simple since Barbara crashed through the door, and this is no exception. A dropped torch, a truck that catches fire before it can be driven away, bodies that don't stay down and don't stay back. What was meant to be an escape becomes another kind of horror entirely, one that spreads outward from the house into the yard, into the fields, into the dark. For a few seconds, everything is fire and noise and shapes moving too close together to tell apart. Then the fire spreads to the truck itself, and the plan that was supposed to save everyone turns into the reason some of them don't make it back inside. By the time the survivors regroup, they aren't the same number they started with. Inside the house, the fighting turns inward before it ever turns outward again. Karen, the bitten daughter, finally succumbs, not to the wound itself, but to what the wound was always going to become. And what she becomes in that cellar is the single most disturbing image the film ever shows you. Precisely because it happens in a place meant to be safe, done by hands meant to protect her. Helen goes down to check on her daughter one last time. What comes back up isn't Karen anymore, not really. And by the time Helen understands that, it's already too late to undo it. The cellar that Harry fought so hard to defend turns out to be the one place in the house where the real danger was never outside at all. Barbara, who spent most of the night frozen, finally has to move and not toward safety. The house that was supposed to be a shelter becomes a trap that closes from every direction at once. Doors give way, boards splinter. What's outside gets in, and what was already inside turns out to have been dangerous the entire time, just waiting for the right moment to prove it. By morning, only Ben remains. Alone in a cellar he didn't want to defend, having survived a night that took everyone around him, one by one, in ways that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with how thin the line really is between the monster outside the door and the fear inside the room. Then comes daylight, and with daylight, the posse. The same men from the radio broadcast, the same organized hunting party moving field by field, finally reaches this farmhouse. Ben, exhausted and disoriented, hears the movement upstairs, sees a figure through a window, and steps forward believing rescue has finally arrived. The gunshot that follows doesn't come from a ghoul. It comes from a man on the posse looking through a rifle scope at a shape moving in a dark window, making a split-second decision the way you make decisions when you've spent all night hunting things that used to be people. He doesn't ask questions first. He doesn't wait to be sure. He sees a target and he takes it, and only after does anyone realize what or who that target actually was. Nobody on that posse hesitates for long. There's a job to do, a field full of bodies to clear before nightfall, and one more shape in a window is just one more shape in a window. Nobody stops to ask whether the person behind that shape spent all night keeping other people alive. Nobody has time to. That's the whole point. The final images are shown almost like a photograph album. Grainy stills of Ben's body being dragged out with meat hooks, tossed onto a pile of bodies, burned in a field alongside everything else the night has produced. The film never lets you forget that the camera treats him exactly the same as it treats the creatures. No name, no mourning, just another body for the pile. The horror was never really about the dead walking. It was about what the living do once the rules disappear, who they trust, who they blame, who they see clearly, and who they only ever see as a shape in a window, moving in the dark at exactly the wrong moment. That drive out to the cemetery at the very beginning feels like a completely different film by the time you reach the end. A brother teasing his sister, a joke about something coming to get her. Neither of them could have known how true that joke would become, or how little the actual monsters would have to do with who survived the night and who didn't.